So in the last episode of Film Thoughts, I said this. In my next video, I plan to explain my theories on who murdered who in each of the Scream films. Well, there's no time like the present. As mentioned in that last video, with the exception of Scream 3, each Scream movie had 2 killers, all of whom I have now ranked. However, there is still one topic regarding the Scream villains that is highly debated on forums and even on the Scream wiki site. Who killed who? Who donned the mask in each of the death scenes? There was only ever one Ghostface on camera at one time, so it obviously wasn't both killers who killed each person, but thanks to the hood and the mask, it's something that is often discussed by fans of the franchise. And I thought it would be fun to give my 2 cents on the whole thing. So, let's start with the first movie. Obviously. Oh, and, you know, spoiler alert. There will be spoilers in this video. So the first kills of the movie and the franchise were that of Stephen Orth and his girlfriend Casey Becker. This is easily one of the best opening scenes in slasher movie history, but who was responsible for their gruesome demise? Well, I actually think both Billy and Stu were there, with Stu doing the horrible deed. The reason I think both were there is twofold. First off is the fact that there is a ghost face at both entrances of the house. Second is just how quickly Casey was disemboweled. It would have taken Ghostface a lot longer than the mere seconds between Casey dying and Casey being discovered by her mother if he did it by himself. But who was responsible for the actual deaths? Well, having rewatched the scene again, I'm pretty convinced that Billy was around the front of the house, most likely making the phone call, while Stu was out in the back of the house, in the costume, making Stu the killer of both Steve and Casey. I say this because this kill was more of a personal vendetta for Stu, considering Casey dumped him to go out with Steve. And let's be real here, it's obvious that the Ghostface at the back entrance is the one who killed Steve. This Ghostface is also the same one which broke into the house and attacked, chased and stabbed Casey, effectively killing her. When giving the final stab to Casey, Ghostface has his mask pulled off by the hopeless girl and she seems to recognise his face, which implies that it is Stu doing the murder. Sure, she would recognise Billy as well, but as I said it was a personal vendetta of Stu, so he would most likely be the one to do the deed. And seeing as though the Ghostface that killed Casey was the same one that killed Steve, it's fair to think that Stu killed both. The killing of Principal Himbry is a bit hard simply because both Billy and Stu had the opportunity to kill him. Stu is literally seen walking back towards the school after saying goodbye to Sidney and Tatum, so he could have easily just walked back into the school and killed Himbry. However, Billy had the better chance and the bigger opportunity. He isn't seen since his talk with Sidney, giving him plenty of time to hide in Himbry's office. Plus, Stu had a party to organise. That takes time, guys. Billy for me. This is often considered the hardest one to decide, however, I'm leaning towards Stu on this one. I found that Ghostface had similar mannerisms to Stu in this scene, in the way that he treated the whole thing as a joke, practically tormenting Tatum before her death. People may argue that it was Billy because Stu sent her out to the garage for Billy to attack her, but I think Stu sent her out there so he could attack her. Plus, why would Billy run back into the house just to go back out of it again, just to come back in through the front door? Surely it would make more sense if Stu was Ghostface in this scene, because Stu was hosting a party and needed to get back inside as quickly as possible. Stu was also the one who killed Kenny, simply because this death followed on from Stu chasing Sidney. I very much doubt it was Billy motioning he was going to stab Randy when Stu was the one who literally was wearing the costume seconds before. I think that after Sidney escaped, Stu went back inside, thought about killing Randy, only to go back outside again after hearing Sidney screaming for help. He then went to the news van and killed Kenny, whilst also trying to kill Sidney. So by my logic, Stu killed Steve, Casey, Tatum and Kenny, whilst Billy killed Himbry and attempted to kill Dewey. That means Stu killed 4 people, while Billy only killed 1. However, I am willing to understand why so many people think that Billy could have killed Tatum. If he did, that would give him 2 kills compared to Stu's 3. Either way, Stu still has more kills than Billy. On to Scream 2. Much like the first movie, Scream 2 started with a couple, in this case Maureen and Phil, getting brutally murdered. However, this time it was in the local cinema. Phil was the first to be killed after getting stabbed in the head through a bathroom stall wall. Ouch. I'm personally leaning more towards Mickey being the killer here. No offense to Mrs. Loomis, but she couldn't even handle a bunch of foam bricks landing on her in the climax of the movie. I'm sure she wouldn't have the strength to plunge a knife through both the bathroom stall and the head of another person. Mickey, however, was definitely strong enough, so I'm saying Mickey. Many people will say you can hear a woman's voice in the other stall, which is why Phil was leaning closer to the wall, and yes, that may be, but that doesn't mean it wasn't Mickey who killed him, it just means Debbie was in there with him and probably made the noise to get him closer to the wall. Maureen's murderer is even easier to determine, considering that she cuddled up to Ghostface when he sat down next to her. Surely Maureen would have noticed straight away that it wasn't Phil if Debbie was in the costume. Meanwhile, Mickey's body frame is closer to that of Phil, so it's easily Mickey behind the mask here. Debbie was most likely removing Phil's body from the scene whilst Mickey killed Maureen. Now Cece's murder is interesting because once again there are two Ghostfaces present. You can tell this because when Cece is on the phone to Ghostface, we can see Ghostface sneak into the house behind her without a phone. A lot of people believe that Mickey was the one on the phone whilst Debbie was the one in the costume doing the brutal murder, however I have to disagree. One of the biggest arguments for this belief is that Mickey knew Cece, so it must be him on the phone because the person on the phone knows things about her. But surely Mickey could just tell Debbie these things. Plus, why would Debbie need to murder Cece? Her motive is good old-fashioned revenge, whilst Mickey is the psycho who just enjoys killing people. If anything, this was just Debbie going along with what Mickey wanted to keep him loyal to her. Oh, and don't forget Cece and Mickey had a disagreement in their class earlier in the film. I know it's a weak motive, but psychos have killed people for a lot less than that. Also, Mickey didn't arrive at the party until after Cece's murder, meaning he had no alibi at the time. Now I know Debbie didn't either, but I'm still thinking that Mickey was the main culprit here. Debbie is obviously responsible for Randy's unfortunate demise because she actually takes credit for it at the end of the film, saying that she got stab happy when Randy insulted Billy over the phone. Also, it makes sense for her to be the killer in this case because Randy was one of the people she wanted to get revenge on for her son's death. And now we get to the utterly awesome car scene, and all evidence points to Mickey. Would Debbie, the smart one, go after two armed cops and then try to drive the car in such a reckless manner? No, I don't think so. Plus, when Mickey unmasks himself, we see that he has a head wound, more than likely a result of the crash. Derek was obviously killed by Mickey because we actually see him shooting him. That gives Mickey a total of 7 kills and Debbie Loomis 1 kill. I like to think of these two as the brains and the brawn. Debbie was the brains who got Mickey, the brawn, to do her dirty work for her and giving her someone to pin the murders on as a result. Now I would discuss Scream 3, but as we all know, Roman Bridger was the sole killer throughout the film, meaning he killed everyone. Therefore, we shall skip ahead to Scream 4. In the opening murder scene, both Charlie and Jill are present as we see later in the film each murder was filmed. As Charlie was the film student, it's safe to say that he was the one filming, whilst Jill killed both Jenny and Marnie. Plus, Trevor, Jill's ex-boyfriend, was cheating on Jill with Jenny, making the murders personal to Jill. Charlie, meanwhile, was most likely the one on the phone. Charlie is behind the mask when Ghostface kills Olivia, obviously because Jill is seen in a completely different house on the phone to Ghostface whilst he kills her. Jill was then responsible for Rebecca's death. Charlie is seen with Robbie as part of the press conference when Rebecca is thrown several stories down onto the news van. Even Culkins can't be in two places at once. This was Jill. When Hoss was making his perimeter, he noticed that Jill's window was open, therefore she must have sneaked out. Charlie was most likely on his way back from the Stabathon after attacking Gale, so Jill had the best opportunity for the killings. Both Ghostfaces were present for this one, as we see one at the back entrance and one at the front. However, it was Jill, the Ghostface at the front of the house, who killed her own mother, Kate. We know this because during the movie's climax, Charlie states that he chased Sydney and Kate from the back door of the house. This was clearly Charlie, as he stated later in the film that he got some great footage of his Robbie kill, plus he had blood in his hands from the murder. This was Charlie, as we see him actually stab her when she unties him, revealing himself as one of the killers. I know it's not known if Kirby survived, but I think it's pretty clear she died. Why would the filmmakers not bother showing the audience that she lived? The fact that the last we see of her is her being stabbed and left to die tells me that she didn't make it. This was Jill, as we see her shoot him in the groin and then in the head. Eesh. This means that Jill had an overall kill count of 7, whilst Charlie had a kill count of 3. So by my logic, both Mickey and Jill have the highest kill count with a whopping 7 kills each. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the pile with just 1 kill each, it's mother and son, Debbie and Billy Loomis. Stu's still better though. Just saying. And that's it for this video. Do you agree with my theories, or do you think I'm talking bollocks? Who do you think killed who in the Scream films? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.